Hey guys, happy Friday. Hiring with Hutto, Predictive Hiring Analytics Part 2. Hey, I hope you got to see Part 1. If not, you may want to back up and go to the YouTube channel and check it out before watching this one so that this one makes sense. So thanks so much for joining this second part of this topic on predictive hiring analytics. I want to reintroduce my co-host, wingman, Vanna White, air traffic control, Justin Maharana.
Hey guys, how is everyone doing today? We are very excited to have part 2 of Predictive Hiring Analytics, where Mark is going to continue to give away his 25 plus years of experience within the vast world of recruitment and talent acquisition. If you haven't already, please go up to the YouTube channel, just type in Reveal Global Intelligence into YouTube and subscribe to us. And we look forward to seeing you all over there. And then Mark is going to go through a number of different documents today, giving away some of our secret sauce here at Reveal that makes us so successful. If you want any of these documents, guys, we're here to help you be successful. Just give us an email at givemethegoods@revealglobal.com, and we could get them out to you. Lastly, as Mark said, I will be air traffic control. We do have chat going on in the background, so feel free to pop in any questions, comments, thoughts that you may have, and I'll relay them over to Mark. Again, we love to produce content for you guys that's going to help you be successful, so we would love to hear from you any pains or challenges that you are experiencing, and we could go ahead and give you information to get you successful. So without any further ado, Mark, please take us away.
All righty. So this, again, predictive hiring analytics is really for talent acquisition leaders, human resources leaders, recruiters, and also small, mid-sized business owners, leaders of business units. So it's really applicable to anyone who does hiring, especially at scale. So if you've got a large hiring volume, big spike or a bubble in hiring, this is the tool for you. We've been using this recently as yesterday for a company that has to hire a lot of field service technicians in a very short period of time. And it helps to sober up everyone in the process to understand, what are we looking at here? How many people do we have to find if we're going to hire 65 people in a matter of a few months? So let me take you back to that tool, get screen sharing going here. And all right. So this is the tool we saw in the last video. You've got the green cells here, which we call control points. Just to refresh you, those are conversion rates. The process here is laid out to the left. This is kind of a standard recruiting workflow, very abbreviated workflow, but you would modify this if you have different, like an assessment or something like that in the process. You would have to account for that. But in this example, it's from the people that we've identified and are attempting to screen, those that get screened by one of us here at Reveal, submitted to a hiring manager. They have to review that number, and then how many flow through to a phone screen, an in-person or a face-to-face, and then those going through background checks, accepting an offer, and those who actually show up. So in this example, we'll look at a number of, let's take it for the example from yesterday to 65. And so we know the numbers change as we enter numbers at the bottom. You can change the percentages in this tool to suit whatever you're finding your pass-through rates to be. And remember, we talked about last time, control points are really like the analogy I gave you was blood pressure. Your upper and lower number, it's just a number. But if you don't like that number, there are control measures that you can take to influence those numbers. So diet, exercise, medication, lifestyle changes. So similarly in recruiting, if you pay attention to the pass-through rates and start to learn that 55% of a connection rate is actually pretty good, but if you wanted to push and increase it, there are some things you can do, these control measures. So that's where we left off last time. So let's dive into what I promised to deliver to you, and that is the content in this blue section. Some of it's visual and other parts are just more of a conversation. So quality of the posting, which is often the job description, I told you before that Lou Adler, one of the greats in our industry, recruiting industry, this is his term, his product, his brainchild, the performance profile. It's brilliant. So in summary, what Lou said about this is a performance profile is a document, a job description kind of on steroids. It communicates what is expected of the individual at 30, 60, 90, 180 days, whatever the key milestones are. You have to put something in there that's quantifiable so that they know how they'll be held accountable. Lou also said this is the greatest eliminator, reducer of unwanted attrition, because as he said, people find out exactly how they're going to be held accountable sometime after they start. Now, what's interesting about this is you ask a hiring manager to do this, myself included, it's not easy. It is not easy to say, all right, well, at day 30, how am I going to measure performance? And it doesn't have to be, numerical necessarily. It could be a pass fail. Either you got it done or you didn't. So that's the performance profile. If you'd like to see an example of that, you might find one on Lou's website, or you can certainly email us, as Justin said, give me the goods at revealglobal.com, and we'll send an example of that to you. So moving on from there, geofencing. Wow, cool, scary stuff. So geofencing, let me give you a visual here. This is from iHeartMedia. That's one of the firms that we use. But geofencing is really applicable for large volumes of hiring, and you know where the person hangs out, lives, convenes, etc. So if you know that they're, take a call center, for instance, or a consulting firm. Let's say that there are a number of people that go in and out of that building every day. Well, when they walk through that door, your iHeartMedia puts a geofence around that building so that when people walk in that building, it parks an ad on their phone for up to 30 days. And each time, not every time, but when they go check the weather or stocks or social media or something like that, they partner with 150,000 plus apps, that you will see a little ad at the bottom. We've all seen these before. And that ad can speak to that individual, maybe even by their company name or their location or something like that, their career field. So it hits everybody in that building. So it may not be applicable for everyone in the building, of course, but that ad will stay on their phone, like I said, for 30 days, and it keeps cycling through these impressions. Well, what good is that ad? Well, if you click on the ad, there's a call to action. Then you can set up whatever the next step is in your process. For us, it's often a recruiting video. Usually we use DigiMe to put a video job description together that compels them to take the next step in the process, whatever that may be. But that's geofencing. Again, if you're doing something on a large scale, it's a really, really cool tool to get to passive candidates at scale.
And Mark, we had a question coming from Susan. She wants to know who are some geofencing providers. I know you mentioned iHeartMedia there before.
Yeah. Susan, I know of two others. One is Propellant Media, and the other is El Toro. El Toro, I think, is a little different, but they all have the ability to even to get to someone's home. So if you know the address of the people that their home address, I don't know, I don't know. I'm a little uneasy about that one. I'd probably do it, but I'd still be a little uneasy about it. But you can get ads to the person based on their home address. But those are the other two that I know about, Susan. Thanks for the question. Okay, so sourcing tools is next here. Don't really have a visual on that. This is whatever you use for sourcing. It could be LinkedIn Recruiter. For us, it's LinkedIn Recruiter. It's Seek Out, really cool tool. Love Seek Out. And then we just signed up with Loxo, Matt Chambers' company. Wow, that guy and that crew are smart. If you haven't checked out Loxo, really, really strong stuff there, AI sourcing and so on. And I'll mention another thing that they do that really pushed us over the edge to join them. Realistic job preview video. This is again about getting quality into the process. So for instance, we produced a realistic job preview video for a company that manufactures certain products. And these individuals that we were recruiting, very entry level, standing on their feet all day, packing boxes, you have to get that across as the reality of the role, and also talk about the benefits of the company, what it's like to work there, hear from the employees at that company. And so that gives a very balanced message. But you want, if they see something in that video that they don't like, then they hopefully will self-select out so that you're not spending time with people who ultimately would leave or not be, not complete the process. And if they did and got hired, they would leave soon after, because that's when they find out what's expected. So realistic job preview videos can be part of this process. And then the variety, persistence, and effectiveness of outreach attempts. At Reveal, we will not hesitate. It's regular fare for us. We will leave, and I mentioned this in the previous video, the LinkedIn Live, that we might leave 10, 12, 15 messages, emails, in-mails, voicemails, text, and so forth. And that makes a lot of people uneasy until you know how we do it. And it's in summary, it's very specific to the individual. If you sound like a campaign, you lose. If you sound like you're calling down a list, you lose. So you want to say something about them specifically, if at all possible. If it's true that your hiring manager is asking about them, mention that. But then, you close out the voicemail, if it's a voicemail, with, please understand that we get to top performing talent like yourself because we're polite, professional, and very persistent. So if I don't hear from you today, I guess I'll speak with you or your voicemail tomorrow. That's the kind of polite, professional persistence I'm talking about. Again, as I mentioned last time, we've had 4 complaints in 15 years, but every week we get an unsolicited compliment for that kind of persistence. Okay, so then we move from sourcing and screening and connection and so forth down to the phone screen. So how do we increase quality here? Purpose-driven recruitment is really almost a little bit of a religion for us here at Reveal, because we're not contingency or retained or anything. We generally get paid hourly. We can say to someone who we've caught in the middle of their workday, passive candidate, we can say to them that our focus is on what's important to them. So career drivers, people are not thinking about these things when they're busy at work. This is our document that we'll send to them. We'll talk through it with them. But we ask them that, these are the 5 considerations, these categories that most people will look at before they consider a move at some level. We just coach them through it a little bit to help them prioritize these and then define them so that we can make sure that truly there's an alignment between what they desire and what is resident in that company and in that role. So that's career drivers. Incumbent Interview is another cool tool. I'm going to pick up my pace here a little bit. I'm looking at the clock. So an Incumbent Interview, check this out. This is really cool. Simple idea, free. But you say there's 10 people in the group and there's 1 vacancy, and that's the one that people are recruiting for, hiring for. Ask the 10 people in the group to give you a 1-bullet response to the 4 questions, and then put it all in the same document. And the 4 questions are: why did you choose to come here? Why do you stay or come back every day? What challenges do you encounter that the company helps you overcome? And the final one is: what do you want anyone to know who is considering a role with us? What do they need to know to make an informed decision? So you pull all that together. We call ours Why Reveal, so that when we make first contact with someone, we tell them, whether it's for us or for a client, we've developed this for a client, we say, at some point in this process, you're going to want to talk to people in the group and ask them, what's it really like to work there? Well, candidate, passive candidate, we have anticipated that need, and we want to share with you what the team said that they wanted to share with you on the front end. It's a very memorable thing to do, this whole idea of the incumbent interview. Very powerful step in the process to increase quality here. Crystal Knows and Whole Story, I mentioned those last time very briefly, but Crystal Knows is that tool that lives in Chrome and allows you, when you look at someone's profile, that picture is from like 10 years ago. I don't know how it got in there. but it allows Crystal Knows looks at the LinkedIn profile you have on your screen and then does its best to read that language and produce a summary disc profile. Very cool thing. And how we use it is we ask the hiring manager we'll produce one for the hiring manager and ask them, what do you see in this that is very accurate or inaccurate? And in that step in the process, we're sharing that with the candidate to say, let me tell you a little bit about the hiring manager. And then there's a deeper way we can go about using this when it gets closer to assessment and selection. Again, back to the topic of whole story, you got to go check these guys out. And when I say these guys, I mean these guys, Aaron, Darren, and John. Humanizing hiring is their tagline. It allows an individual to communicate what's happened in their life and how that translates into character attributes that would be really important to an employer. But it's about taking your life stories and converting them into practical value for an employer. So here's what I've experienced personally and how it helps you professionally as my employer. Very cool tool, whole story. And then immediate versus future opportunities. Simple, simple, simple. You call somebody and say, hey, I have an immediate opportunity for you. What do you think? No, you cornered me. Thank you. You're putting too much pressure on me. No. But if you say, look, we're hiring for immediate opportunities, but also we're going to be doing more hiring for this group in 2021, if that's true, of course. So under what circumstances should we contact you in the future? And you go back to career drivers and you have that conversation. If you find out that most of what they're looking for is resident right away, then you might say, well, can we talk about now? Because at that point, you've got them a little further into the process. And if the timing works for them, great. If not, you've built a bit of a pipeline. Profile quality as we move into the submittal to the hiring manager. So what we want the hiring manager to do is to understand the value this person brings, and the quality of your profile is really what matters here. And here's an example of ours for a chief medical officer for oncology. And really what's happening here is we're just showing how they align to the role, what qualifies them. We try to anticipate questions like, why are they interested in speaking to us at this stage, knowing that they're a passive candidate? If there's a gap in their employment or a short stint somewhere, you want to speak to that proactively. And then, of course, we put in the career drivers and we advise the client to start with that. Start talking to them about what's important to them instead of trying to screen them, because we have to sell. We have to lean into them because they're leaning back if they're passive. And of course,
and Mark, we have a question from Amy on that note on a couple things that you just mentioned. Maybe you have some more, but she wants to know what else do you recommend having in every profile for it to be deemed high quality for the hiring manager?
What else? I think I would just emphasize, speak to what the candidate desires and coach that hiring manager or the interviewer to start there. And certainly if relocation is necessary, compensation details, if you can get that. Of course, if it's a salary history law state, you have to modify your approach. And then I guess I would say, Amy, I'd emphasize once again the questions that the hiring manager would likely ask. So thank you, Amy. Appreciate the question. Okay, so zipping through this a little faster. So now we're down to hiring managers getting ready for the phone screen. So what we want to do here, some of the tools or control measures would be passive talent preparation. Justin told you that if you want these documents, you just have to email us at givemethegoods.com. But here's our passive talent coaching summary. Hiring managers who don't spend a lot of time, hiring for their group, they do it every once in a while. You have to help them understand what is the nature of a passive candidate. Anything that says, an example would be if a hiring manager says, "Tell me why you want to work here," to a passive candidate. What that candidate's thinking is, "Hey, you called me. You tell me why I want to work here." So at that point, you'll hear something like, and you've probably heard this before if you're in recruiting, of a passive candidate. Hiring manager says some version of, well, she didn't really seem all that interested in the job. Right. That's why we're in sales mode. So part of preparation is getting the hiring manager and the candidate ready for that first discussion. Behavioral interviewing, if your client hiring manager needs a refresher or a summary deep dive into that. Again, mentioned selling, review the career drivers, talked about that, where you ask the hiring manager, make sure you start with that. Discuss summary disc factors for yourself as a hiring manager. And in some cases, we'll produce one of those summary disc profiles from Crystal Knows for the candidate and ask the two of them to exchange those and probe, ask questions of each other, because these are things you're going to get to know about someone at some point in your working relationship. Just put those in the front of the process of working together and ask people, about their operating styles so that you get to know them and there's no surprises once you start working together. Another part, let's say they're moving into an interview, either face-to-face on video or in person. This success contract is a mighty beast. It is so cool and it is so simple. We affectionately refer to it as the success contract, but essentially what you're doing with this, it's a coaching document for your hiring manager in particular. And it says, if we lose time and people get delayed and put off and forgotten, we lose candidates. And then covenants is all about the behavior of the hiring manager. And I was sitting with a guy named Marcus. He's CEO of a commercial construction company, sitting in front of him a year or two ago, probably 2 years ago. And he said, he's looking at this and reading it and shaking his head. And I said, Marcus, I'd love to know what you're thinking. And he said, we stink at all of this stuff. So it was good for him to hear that some of the coaching points like sell, assess, tell. When you're bringing two or more interviewers into the process, each person should have their roles assigned as like, what 2 or 3 bullets are you going to sell on? What 2 or 3 competencies are you going to assess on? And what are you going to tell them so that they're coordinated, they don't repeat each other, they don't contradict each other. So this success contract is another very powerful tool for increasing quality of the experience for the candidate, making sure the hiring manager is doing the best they can in terms of their preparation. So you've gotten to offer, background check, and so forth, but how do you make sure that you don't lose someone at this point? So a couple of things. There's an employee value proposition decision support. That's a mouthful. Something I developed years ago that simply allows someone to quantify in the upper section anything that puts money in their pocket or keeps money from coming out of their pocket. All these are not applicable for everybody, but this is where you'd quantify it for whatever the current opportunity is versus their current situation or competing offer. And then at the bottom, there's all these qualitative considerations where they would put some narrative here and here. So that's the employment value proposition decision support document. Closing techniques. There's a file of closing techniques here that many recruiters are familiar with. But this just has to do with different ways to help the candidate. This is not a shell game, sleight of hand. This is how do you help them think through the decision? So there's a number of items here, no time to go through any one of them in detail. And then resignation and counter offer coaching, very important. I know of a handful of senior leaders in talent acquisition and human resources in the past year, who said, now I'm in the spot of the job seeker, applicant, candidate, and I need to think about how I'm going to resign and whether I'm going to accept a counteroffer. I might get confronted with that. So my point here is that even the best of us who deal with this stuff all the time still need a refresher on it. So this document coaches the recruiter on how to coach the candidate, and it's suitable to send to the candidate as well. And then finally, pre-onboarding. They've accepted the offer, and what's the best thing to do? between the time that they accept and the time that they start, where it's 2 weeks, a month, whatever, is to not be silent. Find ways to engage with the candidate before they let me stop sharing. Find ways to engage with the candidate during that process of departure from their old company. They could get recruited back, and you want them to feel engaged and welcome. That could be things like send an email. The team. Question from Samantha. Yep, Samantha. This is the thought is, if you can get the team to send a note to that individual. Hey, so glad you accepted. Can't wait to see you. Get to know you better. The hiring manager may be able to send information. Hey, Jer Langens, how are you? The hiring manager may be able to send some information that they can read up on and study before their first day. So those are some pre-onboarding techniques, Samantha. I'm sure you probably could think of others to keep them engaged until that start date. Justin, we're well beyond 15 minutes, but that's a lot of content to zip through in the Predictive Hiring Analytics Part 2. Justin, any other questions, anything from the group?
Yep, we had one from Amy come in, and it's backing up to the selling portion to passive candidates. She's curious so that she doesn't make the same mistakes. What's some negative feedback that you've gotten from a candidate after they interviewed with a company that has turned them off or has them not wanting to proceed in the process with them?
I see it a lot with some of the bigger brands. The company names that we all know extremely well. Sometimes there's they may not even recognize they're doing this, but we are, insert a global brand name here. They ought to want to work here, and the candidates pick up on that, and it manifests itself sometimes, Albert, as their interviewers are coming into the room, reading their resume on the way into the room. It's clear they're not prepared. And we hear that from candidates. We hear that there was a little arrogance there. I bring game to the table. They were less about, talking about what they can do for me and more about what they were solely just focused on drilling into my background and experience and didn't want to really talk about much else. So a little negative candidate experience like that. Hubris is right, Jer. You need some hubris if you're a big brand. Jer Langens is one of the great ones. He's saying hi and commenting over here. So look him up. Justin, anything else?
No, that is all the questions for now. But I just popped into the chat, guys. Let us know what other topics or challenges you're facing. We love to give away all of Mark's wealth of knowledge that he has, and we would just love to continue to help you guys because that's what we do here at Reveal, is help with anything hiring or talent acquisition related. So, Mark, any closing thoughts from you before we let the gang go?
Happy Friday. Have a great one.
Right on. See you guys.
Take care.